The Franklin expedition set out to conquer the Arctic, but what happened to Sir John Franklin and his crew remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Trapped in ice, battling starvation, and facing an unknown fate, the crew's final journey was nothing short of catastrophic. Discover the chilling story behind this ill-fated mission before the truth slips back into the ice forever. Don't miss out on the full tale of the lost expedition, the Franklin expedition. In the 19th century, the search for the Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, captivated explorers. Sir John Franklin, a British naval officer, led an expedition in 1845 to find this elusive route through the Arctic. Franklin's ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were equipped with the latest technology and provisions to withstand the icy conditions. The expedition, however, faced a perilous journey that would ultimately end in tragedy. Franklin's team of 129 men set sail from England, filled with hope and determination, but they soon encountered the harsh realities of the Arctic. The ships became trapped in the thick ice of the Canadian Arctic archipelago, and the crew found themselves stranded with limited supplies. As months passed and the ice refused to release the ships, morale began to plummet. The extreme cold, lack of fresh food, and growing sickness took a toll on the men, who were faced with the stark possibility of never returning home. Though the expedition started with high expectations, it quickly turned into a fight for survival against the brutal forces of nature. The Franklin expedition is remembered not only for its failed attempt to chart the Northwest Passage, but also for the mystery that surrounded the disappearance of the crew. The lost Northwest Passage. The search for the Northwest Passage was one of the most ambitious and dangerous quests of the 19th century. This sea route, which was believed to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, promised a shortcut for trade and exploration, but it was shrouded in mystery and peril. Many explorers before Sir John Franklin had tried to navigate it, but none had succeeded. By the time Franklin set out in 1845, the dream of finding this passage was as tantalizing as ever. Franklin, an experienced explorer with a reputation for previous successful expeditions, was chosen to lead the British naval effort to map this elusive route. He embarked with two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, both of which were equipped with advanced technology of the time, including steam engines, to help navigate the icy waters. The expedition was thought to be well prepared to handle the harsh Arctic conditions. However, Franklin and his crew soon discovered the brutal realities of the Arctic. Instead of finding a quick route between the oceans, they found themselves trapped in the unforgiving ice of the Canadian Arctic archipelago. This is where the true mystery began, as the expedition vanished from sight and communication was lost for years. The search for the lost ships and their crew would continue for decades, but the Northwest Passage remained as elusive as ever, a dangerous mission. The Franklin expedition, despite its promising start, quickly turned into one of the most dangerous missions in the history of Arctic exploration. Sir John Franklin, a seasoned explorer, was entrusted with a task that had already claimed the lives of several explorers before him: finding the Northwest Passage. Franklin set sail with confidence in 1845, but the journey was fraught with unimaginable dangers from the very beginning. The ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were not only carrying advanced technology of the time, but also a large crew of 129 men. However, the Arctic offered no mercy. The extreme cold, treacherous ice, and unpredictable weather were immediate threats. The ships sailed into the icy waters of the Canadian Arctic archipelago, where they soon became trapped by thick, impenetrable ice. Being stuck in the ice was just the beginning. The men faced the danger of starvation, exposure to the elements, and the creeping fear that help might never come. The dangerous nature of the mission was compounded by the isolation. The men were so far from civilization that any hope of rescue seemed unlikely. What began as a scientific mission to chart the Northwest Passage soon turned into a desperate struggle for survival against the unforgiving forces of nature. Sir John Franklin's leadership. Sir John Franklin was a respected and experienced naval officer when he was chosen to lead the 1845 expedition to find the Northwest Passage. Franklin had a strong track record in exploration, having previously led successful voyages, and he was seen as the perfect candidate for this ambitious mission. His leadership was instrumental in assembling the crew and preparing the ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, with the latest technology of the time, including steam engines, to help navigate the icy waters of the Arctic. Despite his prior successes, Franklin's leadership faced an unprecedented challenge in the harsh conditions of the Canadian Arctic. As the expedition encountered difficulties, becoming trapped in ice, struggling with extreme cold, and facing dwindling supplies, Franklin's ability to lead was put to the test. While he was known for his strong character and determination, it's unclear how well he handled the pressures of such an isolated and desperate situation. As the months passed with no progress, the leadership of Franklin was increasingly questioned by some of his men. The struggle to survive began to reveal cracks in the once confident mission, and the crew's morale began to falter. Though Franklin's legacy remains strong in British history, the failure of this expedition casts a shadow over his leadership, with many questioning whether he was truly prepared for the challenges the Arctic presented. Ultimately, Franklin's leadership could not save the expedition from the dangers they faced in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth, the ship's advanced technology. When Sir John Franklin set sail in 1845 to find the Northwest Passage, he had at his disposal some of the most advanced technology of the time. The two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were equipped with steam engines, an innovative feature that was supposed to help them navigate through the icy Arctic waters. The steam-powered engines were a significant technological advancement, allowing the ships to move even when the wind was not in their favor, giving them an edge over earlier explorers who had relied solely on sail. In addition to steam power, the ships were also outfitted with reinforced hulls, designed to withstand the crushing force of ice. This was seen as a key advantage for navigating the Arctic's treacherous waters. They carried provisions to last the crew for several years, including ample food, equipment for scientific exploration, and tools to map the Arctic region. However, despite these technological advancements, the ships were not equipped to handle the harsh conditions they encountered. The ice proved too thick, and the ships were trapped in it, unable to escape. What was once considered cutting-edge technology was powerless against the relentless force of nature. The technological marvels of the expedition ultimately could not save the crew from the unforgiving Arctic environment, highlighting how even the most advanced tools of the time were insufficient in the face of such extreme conditions. The crew and their supplies. The success of the Franklin expedition was heavily reliant on the crew and their supplies. Sir John Franklin's ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were staffed with 129 men, all handpicked for their skills in navigation, science, and survival. The crew was a mix of experienced sailors, medical officers, scientists, and other specialists, each playing an important role in the expedition's mission to chart the elusive Northwest Passage. The hope was that the men would be able to survive the harsh conditions and complete their mission before returning to England. The canned food, which was supposed to be a long-lasting source of nutrition, became tainted by lead poisoning due to poor canning methods, which significantly impacted the crew's health. As the ships became trapped in the ice and the months stretched into years, the crew's food supplies dwindled. Desperation set in as the men faced starvation, scurvy, and freezing temperatures. Despite the carefully planned provisions, the harsh realities of the Arctic, along with the deadly impact of lead poisoning, left the crew unprepared for the struggles they would face. Setback at Beechey Island. The first major setback of the Franklin expedition occurred at Beechey Island, located in the Canadian Arctic archipelago. After leaving England in 1845, the ships HMS Erebus and HMS Terror reached Beechey Island by late August. This was the last point of civilization the crew would encounter before venturing deeper into the uncharted Arctic. Here they spent the winter of 1845 to 1846, preparing for the next leg of their journey. In the harsh Arctic conditions, the crew faced the first signs of illness. Scurvy began to take hold due to a lack of fresh food, and the isolation took a psychological toll on the men. But it was the ice that truly marked the beginning of the end. The ships had to remain trapped in the thick ice for longer than expected, delaying any further progress toward the Northwest Passage. By the following spring, the crew was forced to abandon Beechey Island and push forward, but it would be their last contact with any known part of the world. This early setback at Beechey Island was a warning sign, foreshadowing the immense hardships they would face further north. It also marked the beginning of a series of misfortunes that would eventually lead to the expedition's tragic end: food and lead poisoning. As the Franklin expedition became trapped in the ice, the crew faced an ever-growing crisis: food shortages and the deadly effects of lead poisoning. While the ships were stocked with provisions, including canned food meant to last for several years, this food would soon become a source of sickness rather than survival. The problem began with the cans themselves. In an effort to preserve the food for long durations, the provisions were sealed in metal cans. However, these cans were poorly made and improperly sealed, leading to the food inside becoming contaminated with lead. Over time, the crew began to experience symptoms of lead poisoning, which included fatigue, joint pain, and neurological damage. With food already running low due to the extended stay in the ice, the lead poisoning made the situation even worse. The crew's already fragile state was further compromised, and survival became even more uncertain. As months stretched into years with no sign of rescue, the effects of the tainted food worsened, contributing to the eventual breakdown of the expedition. Trapped in the ice, by the time the Franklin expedition reached the Arctic waters, the crew's hopes were high. However, those hopes were quickly shattered when the ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, became trapped in the thick ice of the Canadian Arctic archipelago. The ice surrounded the ships completely, rendering them immobile and leaving the crew stranded far from civilization. At first, the men were optimistic, believing that the ice would eventually break and they could continue their journey. However, as the months dragged on and the ice remained unyielding, their situation became more dire. With limited supplies and no means of communication with the outside world, the crew faced a growing sense of isolation and desperation. Trapped in the ice, the men had no choice but to wait, hoping for a miracle that never came. The relentless cold, lack of food, and worsening conditions quickly took their toll on the men. And the expedition that began with such promise soon turned into a desperate fight for survival. The final journey. The final journey of the Franklin expedition began when it became clear that the trapped ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, could no longer provide safety for the crew. After spending months in the ice with dwindling supplies and worsening health, Sir John Franklin made the difficult decision to abandon the ships and try to march south to safety. The crew, weakened by sickness, starvation, and lead poisoning, began their trek on foot, hoping to reach a known British settlement or any form of rescue. This last attempt to survive took them through the brutal, frozen landscape of the Arctic. Despite their determination, the crew was exhausted and ill-prepared for such an arduous journey. The conditions were so harsh that many men succumbed to the elements, while others died from starvation and disease. Franklin himself, along with many of his men, would not survive this journey. Search and rescue efforts. As the Franklin expedition disappeared into the Arctic ice, the British government launched one of the most extensive search efforts in history. Over the years, multiple rescue missions were sent to find Sir John Franklin and his crew. Ships combed the Arctic waters, searching for any signs of the missing men. Despite their efforts, the rescue missions failed to find the expedition's final resting place for many years. It wasn't until decades later that the wrecks of the Erebus and Terror were discovered, solving the mystery. The discovery of the wrecks. In 2014 and 2016, a remarkable discovery brought an end to the mystery of the Franklin expedition. After years of failed searches, the wrecks of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were finally located on the ocean floor, deep in the Arctic waters. The discovery provided crucial clues about the fate of the crew and shed light on the expedition's tragic end. The wrecks were remarkably well preserved, offering new insights into the advanced technology used during the expedition and the challenges the crew faced. Artifacts recovered from the ships, including personal items and navigational tools, gave researchers a clearer picture of the events leading up to the demise of the crew. This discovery not only solved the mystery of the Franklin expedition, but also offered a somber reminder of the dangers explorers faced in their quest to conquer the unknown. The tragedy of the Franklin expedition leaves us questioning the limits of human survival in the harshest conditions. But this isn't the end of strange mysteries. Our next video dives into the bizarre and unexplained Tunguska event. What caused the massive explosion in Siberia? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss it. And if you found this story chilling, share it with others. Let the legend of the lost expedition live on. The Arctic still holds its secrets, and the ice may never reveal all. But through stories like these, we honor those who ventured into the unknown and paid the ultimate price. Their courage echoes in the silence of the frozen north. Don't just watch history, remember it.